Jumalang Sanbonane Dimachiloni. Welcome to the Scout. I am Kiratilamoloto, aka KO Mott. Now, fresh out of the box, we come into this new year with a topic that is rather common, however, very disturbing. Has corona been the youth's psychological piranha? The word piranha comes from a fish that has a species that eats humans. So piranha is well known as a human-eating fish. So with this, I ask, has corona been feasting on our psychological thinking and emotions? Helping me unwrap on this topic, within a few minutes, I will be joined by a wellness specialist specializing in psychology. I am well aware, and believe you me when I say I am too, that a lot of you are tired from hearing about COVID. The stats, the rates, the numbers that are constantly rising. It is as if like people have just given up. It's as if like we're in that mindset where we're like, Yazin, I'm going out. If I die, I die. 609, yeah, fana. And it's that kind of mindset that makes us feel like we are the ruins of our own economy, our own country, let alone our own lives. In most cases, we tend to act out of emotions and not necessarily from what we have considered as a thought about option. With this, we'll be unpacking things from the emotional and the psychological point of view with facts and mostly opinionated ideas. Now, I do understand that the positives that has been discovered within this time of COVID has been clouded by the negative impacts COVID has had. For now, we are enduring our way into what we call Minute Dollar Coffee, and our Minute Dollar Coffee guest, a wellness specialist. After the break, we will be joined by this guest, and please make sure that you go get yourself a drink. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and this is time for Minute Dollar Coffee, and I do believe that you have your drink with you. I hope that you didn't actually leave it behind when you come and join us here. I am joined now by Sibonelo Mbele, a wellness specialist specializing in psychology. Hey, my LT, how are you?
Hey, very fine, my brother, yourself.
Fantastically fine, man. I do believe that you have been also tired of hearing about the stats and the rates of COVID. How has actually that made you feel in the past? Well, we're almost enduring to the year now.
Yeah, I must say that at first, when it was starting last year, it really frustrated me, man. Like I hate being stuck, like that feeling of being stuck, like seeing plans coming to a standstill. I hate that very much. And I must be honest to say it is not the pandemic that actually was overwhelming me, but the way in which things were done, this new normal, as they call it, like it was not so normal to me because I'm somebody who loves progressing a lot. So whenever something that comes and puts so much of restrictions and causes so much of stagnancy, it was very frustrating to me, man. Yeah, it was very frustrating at first, but as time went by, we are resilient as human beings, so we always either we die or we adapt. So I adapted, I can say.
Well, man, well, I do understand that, and from my point of view as well, it has been quite frustrating. But I
Yeah,
believe that we're just going to conquer, and we just have to put up with the new normal whilst we're waiting to
that's
be back
true.
on the old normal as it is.
Yeah.
So, having been conducting counseling and throughout this period of COVID, how many cases have you can you say you've had out of that what pertaining from COVID-19?
Of people distressed by the current pandemic.
Of course, of course.
Actually, I haven't had any cases actually of people who are distressed by the current pandemic. people have just been coming in for the general life problems that we are all used to, relationship crisis, previous rape experiences, people who still had flashbacks as a result, but I never had anyone in specific who says they are overwhelmed by the current pandemic.
I hear you for. And with that being said and done, I actually have had someone. I spoke to a student who is studying medicine at Wits University. She's studying medicine and surgery third year. And I actually asked her. I asked her a question, of which was she responded in this manner, and that question was: working in a medical field and faculty demands a very strong and a tough character, given the amount of work you have, and given that you're also working with people's lives, whether it's health threatening or life threatening. And I asked her, like, okay, and so how has this affected the human decimating virus? How has this decimating virus challenged the character that that is still in developing stages and that is still in spaghetti legs, I say. And this is how she actually responded. So I would actually like us to listen to this voice note.
Okay.
And yeah, we will continue from there.
The emotional challenges that I can say I have been facing so far, the fact that people are dying, and it's like every day you get to hear that someone you know has died, probably of COVID or something else, but people are dying. And I also think of how much weight is put on the healthcare system right now, and thinking that if it was a normal time and I had to be doing my clinical rounds at hospital, that would mean that I would be exposed to such conditions, and I could have died also, so that's something that does not sit well with me. And the fact that people are not really complying to the rules and regulations for COVID-19, it's so sad, because at the end of the day, it's the healthcare system that has to make things right, or try to make things right. Yeah, so those are the emotional challenges I am facing. And the fact that here at home, you don't have the right emotional support you would have at school, because at school there are platforms like counseling and everything, and then here at home it's hard to have such.
So, man, what's this voice note? She was basically like expressing her emotions, given that she's working in this character, she's working towards this character, but at the same time, she is facing these sort of emotional challenges. So now I'm asking you, on what kind of psychological problems can these sort of emotions cause?
The emotions expressed on the voice note.
Yes, of course.
It can actually lead to things such as depression, which is the first one. It can lead to things such as depression. It can also lead to, I can say, the exaggeration of what is currently happening. Like the mind has got that sometimes, that things, they are exaggerated for what they are, because now you are thinking too much. It leads to overthinking that creates problem on top of the problems that are already there. Because if a person is like that, and then they no longer have any place wherein they can vent their emotions, a place where they feel safer to can vent out their emotions, the overthinking begins, and the problems that were not even there initially are being created by the mind itself. And then the effect on the individual, it increases, and the person may become overwhelmed. And being overwhelmed will automatically lead to them being depressed in the process, because it seems as if there is no way out of the situation that they are facing. Because now what happens with the human being is, whenever you are faced with something that is life-threatening or hazardous, because we have got this inborn inclination to easily attach to what is negative more than what is positive, your mind will automatically be narrowed to that which is negative at the end of the day, and that in turn will distress and depress you as an individual. Hence, they say that for each and every scenario, always try to get at least 3 perspectives, because we understand that as a human being, at times it's difficult, if not impossible, to see things from different perspectives by yourself, Hence, we have things like counseling, so that somebody from a neutral position may be able to show you the other side of things that you by yourself are not able to see.
So another thing is speaking of psychology and counseling, she also mentioned that they are unable to actually go to a psychologist or go to school counseling, given that they are now at home and working at home. So that workload has just like been a burden upon them, and it has been quite overwhelming, as you say. So I want to know, we are now pertaining to solutions. What are those psychological remedies that we can practice so that we don't make COVID and the whole process and the whole situation that is caused by COVID, we don't make it our dominant thought, so that we don't get to narrow our minds and be overwhelmed in certain situations?
All right. So I can say it does not necessarily have to be strictly psychological remedies as such, but there are things we do on our day-to-day lives, things such as listening to music, taking a walk, exercising, because whenever you are doing a certain activity, your energy and attention are directed on that, So the mind, what actually brings distress and depression to the mind is when you are thinking about the same thing again and again. So the things you do daily as an individual, they also have some psychological benefits, because they ensure that your mind is not imprisoned by one dominant thought. COVID, as you have mentioned, the things that people do in their daily lives, as I mentioned, listening to music, even reading certain books, like it helps with, it's a good way of taking the mind off these negative reports as well that we are having day in and day out. Reading certain books, it's also a good activity for ensuring that you do not at the end of the day end up thinking too much about the situation to the point where you become overwhelmed by the situation, And also, like this thing, that is what they call mindfulness. Mindfulness, now it has to do with the fact that as a human being, you need to be aware that you are not your feelings, but you are an entity that is observing your feelings, Be in a position to can be able to assess to monitor your own thoughts and emotions with regards to the situation, and be able also to see beyond the situation. For instance, there is COVID. Why am I threatened by COVID? You need to see what lies beyond the emotion that you may be feeling as an individual. What could it mean for me? So it means that I actually value living. That is why anything that threatens life, it becomes fearful to me. So when you come at that point where you are able to observe your emotions in that way, it actually helps with bringing ease, because you do not see the situation as the sole cause of how you are feeling, but it also makes you aware of how much you value life as well.
I do believe that a lot of people
Yeah.
actually relate to what you're saying instead. And again, I
Yeah.
want to actually ask this question. It's rather weird. So
Yeah.
how do we make an individual who is less likely to speak who is less likely to speak their emotions? We have people out there who
Yeah.
who cannot speak their emotions out, who
Yes.
cannot express how they
Yeah.
feel. and it often leads to having to bottle up information. I mean, or emotions like that leads to a lot of things. So how do we actually handle people like that? You could see that a person can actually a person needs help. So how do we approach a person? How do we connect in their psychology so that we can actually make them speak out? And often, obviously, that sounds like a crime in a way. We are hacking and scamming their psychology. But then at the end, it will help because all those emotions would have been expressed and so forth. So how do we approach like that?
That is a very interesting question, Menti. It's a very interesting one because I also have come across such clients as well at some point. So what happens is, I want you to think of the elevator situation. If you have been in an elevator before, most of the time you'll find that in an elevator there is so much of silence. Reason being, between the people who are in the elevator, there is no common ground. You are just people who are using the elevator. You don't have much to converse about. So when dealing with people who find it difficult to express their emotions, it actually helps to sort of lay a common ground, by maybe being the one to start expressing your emotions. In so doing, you normalize talking about emotions to that individual. Even I personally, at some point, I was never somebody who was so free to talk about my weaknesses, up until I met somebody who normalized speaking about weaknesses to me. And that is when I began realizing that it is normal to talk about imperfections and weaknesses without even feeling embarrassed. So when you, the person approaching the person who finds it difficult to express themselves, it helps to lay that common ground by being the first to express yours. In so doing, you normalize self-expression to that particular individual.
Hey, I thank you for, because sometimes we do actually approach people like that. We start actually speaking our emotions first, and then Basbu can be like, "Hey, let's leave my less." So in a way, you feel as if like, "Oh, hey, oh, I understand that." So now let's head to a rather disturbing topic, and that is the vaccine. So just want your opinion behind the vaccine. What is your opinion behind the vaccine, given the conspiracies that have been going around, all the videos speaking about this corona, it not being real, it not being coming from people, it was planned. What are your conspiracies behind the vaccine? I mean, your ideas.
Yeah, like with regards to this issue of the vaccine, like there is just so much from my own perspective as well. Like the manner in which it is made to be obligatory, it does raise suspicions to a certain extent, because of why we see it as violating our constitutional rights as human beings of doing things out of free will, but the manner in which they are bringing it in a mandatory manner, to say that it must even deprive an individual of certain necessities if they do not have it. So for now, I'm still neutral, so to speak, concerning the matter of this vaccine, as also to the impact that it could have on human life as well. But I'm still on a neutral position for now.
Of course, because there's a lot of conspiracies going on behind the vaccine and all along the corona itself. So it does actually hinder one's belief, in a sense of, obviously it tackles your belief. Now you don't know what to believe or whether to take it or not.
True.
And it's
true.
this thing actually, it's just, I feel as if like it's going to start just as like the mask has started. When the mask started, it was preferred for you to actually wear a mask so that you don't contract the virus. But now it is now stated it is like a crime not to wear a mask. So you are forced to wear a mask in a way. So now,
and that is where things become suspicious now.
Precisely my point. So now, in your opinion, do you think that we are going to get to that stage where we are now forced to take the vaccine, even if like you don't really want to take the vaccine?
Definitely, by the looks of things, I think that is actually where things are heading to. Because remember now how people are imprisoned by the fear of the pandemic. So imagine now, they say the vaccine arrives and then people must take it. So it only makes sense to say, even for people to can be able to go to work freely, they'll have to be vaccinated in the name of not be in the name of protecting other individuals so as not to infect them. When you go to other countries, you must be checked for the vaccine and all of that. So you can see that it actually gonna do as it did with the mask. It may be a preference, but later on it's definitely gonna get to there where it becomes mandatory by means of people being deprived of necessities if they are not vaccinated.
Well, you know what? This is actually a lot to take in. And having
Yeah,
to prepare for the future in this manner, I believe that a lot of us will actually have to prepare our psychology as well and our beliefs
that's true.
that
That's
whether
true.
or we want to take it, we are going to take it anyways. All right, Mr.
Yeah.
Sigonela Mbele, thank you very much for joining me. And
Yeah.
Mbuyele, we will be right back.
Thank you, sir.
To book yourself a session with the specialist wellness counselor Sibonela Mbele under a need of counseling, life coaching, or a trauma incident reduction, simply call on the numbers 072 467 8091, or you can even call and WhatsApp on 073 626 5548. We're right back, and thank you for actually joining us. However, I have a piece of mind that I actually want to share with you guys in a sense of when it comes to this COVID. One thing that I think that has been discovered is that we've been living in front of a glass. What I mean by in front of a glass, I mean like we've been sitting in front of a glass in a sense of we can see our reflection as you walk past a shop that has a glass, we can see our reflection, but we are more focused on what is behind the glass, what is inside the shop. So this is what I think. I think that, before COVID, we've been living with a glass in front of us, whereas we were more focused on what was behind the glass, which was the people, the kind of people you like, the kind of people you don't like, the kind of people you want to put up with, those ones that you do not want to put up with, and so forth. You were introspecting people in a sense of what you like, what you don't like, what you believe, and what you do not believe. So after COVID, this is where I think like a twist of events has just actually happened, in a sense of now this glass that we only see, that we saw our reflection, but we didn't really actually pay attention to our reflection because we knew ourselves, we were seeing what was behind the glass, has now been turned into a self-introspecting mirror. So now this mirror, not only can you see your physical self, no, it actually makes you see your inner self. It makes you see your character. There's a lot of things that I really don't like about myself, having to see myself in this self-introspective mirror that this COVID has actually turned and so forth. So with this, I believe that, after COVID, hopefully it will be soon, we will actually find that we will have more knowledge of exactly who we are and what we want and how we should act towards people, given that we saw, how we have been has not necessarily been what we think we were. If that makes sense, then with that, I will actually wrap up. It has been a fantastic afternoon, and thank you for joining me. Join me next time on The Scout as I go through another topic with another guest, and hopefully it will be revitalizing and not as depressing as this one. That is all from me, Keyo Malt. Thank you very much. It is.